So, Wuthering Waves content creation, let's talk about it, because this is something that's been coming up in a couple of groups that I've seen, including one post which we will get into, about how Wuthering Waves content creation has been going. And obviously me, myself, I've been covering Wuthering Waves before it even came out, you know, I was really on that grind whenever it comes to trying to get out Wuthering Waves content before the actual game released. And obviously I'm still covering it now because of, you know, how many good updates there have been, and just how well, you know, Wuthering Waves has managed to last until up to this point. You know, we're almost reaching an anniversary at the moment where it's been 1 year and we're still here making content on it, which I think is absolutely great. Now, if you guys don't know anything about my past, I used to be a Genshin Impact content creator, a Hoyoverse content creator, I'd say, because I also covered a bit of Honkai Star Rail 2 whenever that first came out as well. And honestly, you know, it's been such a great switch going to Wuthering Waves a little bit more. Obviously, I still cover a bit of Hoyoverse content over on my second channel. It's a little bit more negative, I will be real. But pretty much there's been this whole conversation and stuff, you know, kind of talking about Wuthering Waves content creation, which I stumbled across, which obviously a couple people have also covered. I'm pretty sure Ethan covered it, and I saw some other people give their opinions. And this was actually in the Gacha Police community. Now, this really interested me because obviously the Gacha Police is filled with all sorts of people. It seems like, you know, so many people have been attracted to this kind of area that, you know, there's a ton of like Kuro bots and Hoyo shills everywhere that are kind of making their own kind of choices and decisions on different posts to make. And obviously this person says, I've noticed something between Kurobot CC and Hoyo shill CC. Kurobot CCs are usually disrespectful towards Hoyo and his community. They are usually drama farmers. Hoyo shill CCs usually make content about the game and never talk about dramas until they're forced to. How sad for wuwa. Which I saw this and I thought it was a little bit weird because obviously, yeah, they've brought up certain content creators, for example, Saint Tontas here as one of the Wuthering Waves content creator examples. Then we've got Doro as someone who does, you know, mainly Hoyoverse. He does cover a little bit of Wuthering Waves as well. And obviously we go over to Anthony Chan, I'm pretty sure this is. And obviously, yeah, he's covering our Hoyo. But to be fair, you can see he's even trying to get out of the Hoyo space. And then finally, we got Glaive as well, who makes a lot of Wuthering Waves content. Now, I do understand, obviously, because I've been brought up in similar comparisons like this in the past with my thumbnails. I understand where a lot of the kind of, you know, confusion and hatred comes from these people saying that the Kurobot CCs are being disrespectful. You know, let's be real, you know, me and some content creators do release some titles and some thumbnails which can be seen as quite, you know, heavy, and it's quite like, you know, going straight to the point at Hoyoverse. But the main point of this is to go after these companies which aren't performing good, which maybe these other content creators which they're also mentioning aren't doing. Because as you can see here, you know, you got people like Doro, Anthony Chen, who just make videos on the game and they just play it and they don't really point out any kind of like flaws of it. And obviously that's a big problem, and that's how Genshin Impact isn't as much liked anymore, due to the fact of, you know, all of these overly positive content creators not giving any critiques to the game. Now, yes, you can say, oh, you know, they're constantly comparing the game, they're constantly comparing Wuthering Waves to Hoyoverse, but let's be real, a lot of these people have played Hoyoverse games, including me. You know, I've spent years and years playing Genshin Impact, Honkai Star Rail, Zelazone Zero. Obviously, you know, Zelazone Zero is newer, so it's not been years, but you get what I mean. I've spent so much time playing these games that I know where to compare them. I know how much better Wuthering Waves have done things, and that's why I make content on it, and that's why I, you know, compare the two. And I think it's kind of stupid to be saying that, you know, they're all drama farmers and everyone's just drama farmers, because all it is that these content creators, especially a lot of these Wuthering Waves ones, are actually able to tell it how it is, compared to some, you know, content creators like Anthony Chen and Doro, who more than likely have a contract to do with Hoyoverse. You know, Hoyoverse usually give them a contract to just be nice about the game, not really speak bad about it, and just kind of do content on it, which is totally fine. If you want to do that, go ahead. I honestly think, you know, Doro and Anthony Chan are great content creators, and I think if they want to, you know, be very positive about the game, that's totally fine. That's up to them. But I think people comparing it and, you know, kind of downplaying, you know, people kind of criticizing other games, it's just dumb, you know? And obviously we had some other kind of replies and stuff down here from Tectone saying the reason Hoyo CCs don't talk shit is because they know their games are the worst, or are contracted by the devs and are mindless puppets. Hope this helps. And obviously, yeah, so that's a pretty good reply there from Tectone, obviously. And that is definitely true, because obviously, yeah, you're not going to see any Genshin Impact content creator going out here and kind of saying, hey, Genshin Impact is so much better than Wuthering Waves, look at all of these features we got, because they've got none. Like, that's literally the case. You know, you can't really change that fact. That is literally a fact that Wuthering Waves has a ton of features that Genshin Impact, Honkai Star, and some other games don't have, which obviously, you know, these content creators aren't going to be able to bring that up as a point because, you know, they don't have it in the first place. And that's why, you know, a ton of Wuthering Waves content creators are actually able to make this content, because Wuthering Waves are doing things different. They're doing things, you know, that Hoyoverse never did. They're doing things that Hoyoverse, you know, don't want to implement. For example, the artifact set system. You know, Genshin Impact players have been asking for that forever. You know, whenever I was playing the game a lot, you know, they were still asking for it, and it still isn't really fully here. And obviously it's not even been a year of Wuthering Waves yet, and you know, they're just like, okay, yeah, sure, here you go, here's artifact sets. And whenever we don't even really need them, let's be honest, you know, with a lot of the echoes and stuff, there isn't actually that many to the point where we actually need it at this point, but they went, you know, here you go anyways, because they know it's something that the community want. And obviously this is why so many people are comparing the two games, because obviously there's a clear and stark difference between the two. And also, I think, you know, the main reason why it's getting compared to Genshin Impact the most is because of the similarity in game. They're both open world games, they both have similar kind of aspects in it, which allows people to compare it more. If you're comparing it to Honkai Star Rail or Zenless Zone Zero, you can't really compare it as much, just due to the fact of the game style and everything like that. Now you could compare maybe stuff like that analytics, just because it came out at a similar time to Wuthering Waves. You can compare how the two are actually performing. Other than that, you can't really compare a lot of the kind of, you know, stuff in the game. There's a few things at events and stuff, but again, that's just for like a different kind of topic. But honestly, I think that a lot of people trying to downplay this is just like, oh, they're just drama farmers, or they're, you know, farming drama. Is the initial problem that we've had in this community for so long. It's just like, you know, we started off with Genshin Impact saying that, hey, you know, you're a drama farmer if you talk bad about my Hoyoverse game or something like that. And, you know, obviously this created this entire kind of community, like, you know, people like Doro and Anthony Chan, and even more, like, I'm not just trying to, you know, go after these people. There's tons of Genshin Impact creators out there who are overly positive about the game, which then, you know, drives the game to just not make any more kind of changes that can actually be really beneficial to the game, which we're seeing right now, by the way. You know, whereas a lot of the changes that, you know, they've been asking for years, they're not there because, you know, obviously it's overly positive. They don't need to make a change if, you know, they are being overly positive. Whereas with the Wuthering Waves audience, we're a little bit more progressive, I feel like. You know, we want things to change. Like, if you take a look at my channel, for example, I do cover the negatives of Wuthering Waves, like in terms of games and everything like that. So I feel like, you know, people are kind of fair on the system. For example, Saint. I know Saint covers a lot of the negatives of Wuthering Waves as well too. For example, stuff like, you know, the wuwa stuff and everything that went on with that, you know, people were very negative about that and they changed it. And that's the good thing about it, you know, you can be negative about Wuthering Waves and still want a change. You know, you're not negative about the entire game, you're negative about one aspect of it. You're not drama farming, you're just providing critiques which could improve the game in the future. And, you know, obviously, yeah, whenever you have this stark contrast between Hoyoverse content and Kuro Games content, well, it's going to look a lot different because a lot of the kind of, you know, big Hoyoverse content creators don't talk about the negative sides of Genshin Impact, so nothing changes and everybody thinks, you know, oh, these people are so much more drama farmy, when that isn't really the case. It's just that these people aren't speaking up about their game, and, you know, if that's the case, they can do what they want. But, you know, for Wuthering Waves and comparing it to other games to make our game better, I feel like, you know, that's a very positive thing for the community going forwards. And I feel like, although it does seem negative on some of the videos, you know, some people might be like, oh, it's drama, things like that. At the end of the day, it does help to improve the game in the future because Wuthering Waves do listen and make those changes. Wuthering Waves don't see this as, oh, you just hate the game. Okay, we don't care about your opinion. We're just going to keep, you know, producing the updates we want to produce. They actually look at this negative feedback, they go, okay, how can we change this? And then they make the changes. For example, like wuwa. For example, like other kind of aspects in the game, which have been a massive change and have helped out the game in the long term, which honestly has made the game even better than it is today, whereas Genshin Impact is still just kind of dawdling along because, again, all the content creators are so positive about the game and not really calling out what needs to be called out. And obviously this person actually replies to Tectone here saying, I could also say that Kuro's content creators know wuwa isn't relevant enough, so they'd farm drama like you because that's the only way they stay alive. Although unlike you, they don't have the same freedom to do whatever they want and still keep the same number of views, which I don't think is true at all. I feel like drama content actually sometimes does worse. You know, in my analytics, I've made some drama content which has done actually worse than my positive Wuthering Waves content. If you look at my most popular videos in my long form, most of it is being like, yo, Wuthering Waves have got a new update, this shit's insane. That's usually the videos that do good. The ones that do bad is me actually talking about an issue. The ones that get a lot of dislikes is me talking about an issue, but we still do it. And that's the kind of point, you know? I feel like, you know, making drama content and making content that is negative about the game isn't necessarily a play to get more views. It's a play to, you know, kind of improve the game and improve the space in general and just kind of get something off your chest. For example, like this video, you know, this video, I am literally talking about an issue that is going on at the moment, and it's been something that's been plaguing Hoyoverse forever. And I hope that the Wuthering Waves community does not change, you know? I hope the community stays as it is and stays what this person hates, you know? I wish that whatever this person hates about this kind of space at the moment, because that's what's keeping Wuthering Waves alive, that's what's keeping Wuthering Waves good, that's what's keeping Wuthering Waves having all these really great updates, which can honestly, you know, really benefit the game and the players and everything, and honestly, it's really good for us. Obviously, it's bad for Hoyoverse, but the fact is, if Hoyoverse just stepped up their game a bit, and actually some content creators put their foot down and talked about some of the issues, and actually, you know, kind of pushed for a little bit of a change in the game, then maybe they would also have have a little bit of change in their game too, but they don't. And you know, obviously it's not my fault, it's not any Wuthering Waves creators' fault that their game is doing bad. It's their fault. It's their fault for not making content on it. And obviously, yeah, we can call it out as much as we like, but you know, we're not the core audience for this, and it's them that have to do it. And I feel like, you know, this is just one of these kind of situations where people are just trying to call this drama farming when it's just really not the case. And honestly, I just found this really, really weird and really, really stupid that they think that all of this is drama farming, and that all of this, and that like every single Hoyo Shield content creator is like, you know, an innocent saint or whatever. If they actually talked about the issues in the game and stuff like that, honestly, I feel like Genshin Impact would actually be in a much better state at the moment, and that's just the difference between the two communities. And if you want to hate that, you can hate that, but you know, at the end of the day, you know, Wuthering Waves is going to keep improving. Hoyoverse is going to keep, you know, kind of dawdling on their games. For example, you know, we had the whole Castro stuff going on as well. Honkai Star ain't looking too hot. Zealous Zone Zero is looking a bit better, obviously, with a lot of that dev talk. It honestly looked really good, so hey, we have to wait and see what happens with that. But, you know, for now, with Genshin Impact and Wuthering Waves are making the changes that people want. That's the only thing that we need to compare here, you know? And obviously, if, you know, Wuthering Waves creators want to compare the games, they obviously can, because they have free will to do so. And if you don't want to watch that content, then don't watch that content. But at the end of the day, I feel like, yeah, people should continue making this content, calling out problems with every single game in this community so that they can improve it. And even if it is Hoyoverse and they're not going to listen at all, you know, well, you know, still call it out. Maybe they'll listen. We never know. And we'll have to wait and see. But honestly, I don't think that's going to happen. And honestly, I think Wuthering Waves has just been doing so good at the moment that I think some people are a little bit mad that, you know, it is on top and that they are doing much better. And maybe that's the case with this kind of tweet here. But I've seen many different tweets that are very similar to this. And honestly, it is getting a little bit ridiculous at how some people can get so mad at this. So yeah, if you guys did enjoy this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think about this, because again, it's a very, very interesting topic. I thought it was quite an interesting tweet. Many people have chimed in on this. It's only got 200 likes out of 63,000 views. So that kind of tells you about how much people agree with this one. Yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. That's all. See ya.